This is the Ballroom State of Mind podcast, episode 122, Time to be Discouraged. Welcome to the podcast, my friends. I'm making progress on the coaching that I'm going to offer this year. And it's been hard because I've been getting a few messages from people like wanting private sessions, and I've just sort of discontinued them for the time being, while I've been creating what I'm doing next. And I talked to my web designer about it today, and I'm getting excited. So it's getting closer. So I'm going to put a link at the bottom of the show notes so that you can get on the wait list to hear about what it is. I'm super excited about it, and it's going to be super affordable, and you're going to love it. It's like next level to what I've been doing with private coaching, and I can't wait. But it's going to take a minute for me to get it together, but the wheels are in motion. So look forward to that. What I want to talk about today is discouragement. And I had a session recently with a client who suffered an extensive dance injury. Okay. And it took her straight out of commission, like had to be carried off the floor, pretty dramatic, pretty painful. And it's not her first injury. She's had several injuries. She's a really active woman, in her 70s, and over the years has had lots of injuries that she's had to recover from. And, she has a little bit of trauma from that. Like, it's really difficult when I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this. It's really difficult when you're a really active person and you get injured. In fact, I did an episode on coping with an injury that was episode 62. I'm going to reference that in a minute, but she had this injury, and, it's going to be a good 12 weeks, probably till she's back on the dance floor. And we've had a couple of sessions to talk about this, and we were trying to work through it in our most, like, we've had 2 sessions recently. And in the first one, we did talk a lot about a lot of the solutions that I offer in episode 62. And just to kind of like recap some of that, we tried on, accepting it. Like, a lot of times when we first get injured, we just are in resistance. We just don't want this to be happening. So one of the first things I recommend that you do is you start to work on just like accepting reality instead of fighting reality. We are injured. It is hard. It is difficult. We are in pain, and we are like putting the brakes on what we've been used to doing. But having this injury and then also on top of it, wishing we didn't isn't helping. We also talked about surrendering, and just part of that acceptance is just surrendering to what it is, letting ourselves rest and honoring what our bodies need, and like how awesome it is that for all the things that our body does for us, that we can take this time to give back to it. Right. And just let it do what it needs and give it the time to heal. And we also talked about going slow to go fast. So meaning if you try to get back to things too soon and we continually re-injure ourselves, or we don't let it heal as fully as we could, which I see in fitness instructors all the time and dancers all the time, then we delay that healing. Sometimes we create a lot worse situations rather than just like slow down, let this heal fully, completely, so that we get more longevity in the long run. So we talked about that. We talked about exploring what we could do with where she is, dance wise, but also just doing other activities. And we talked about all the resources even that she magically had in place. Okay. We talked about all the positives, like how things went down and how she was so well supported and how supportive her studio is and her friends and her husband and her physical therapist, who I've had so many fitness people in my life who a physical therapist or a orthopedist or a doctor has said, you need to be done. You need to stop. Like, this is too much. Your overuse injuries are too much and you just need to stop. But she does not. She has a physical therapist who's telling her full support. We're going to get you back to full activity. We're going to get you back on the dance floor. She's got orthopedists who like were miraculously able to get her in quickly and get her films that she needed. I mean, just so many things going in her favor that are pointing to like, you are so well supported. You're so well taken care of. And her family is supporting her. Her friends are like validating how difficult her experience is. So much going well. And yet we're still kind of struggling with it. Now, when I'm working with clients, everyone handles things differently and everybody needs to be coached like a little bit different. So how I might coach one client might not be how I would coach another client. And so some people might be listening to this and being like, I don't get it. Okay. It's not that big a deal. Like, take a break, get better, like, and then you'll get back at it. Like, I don't understand. It's not the end of the world. It's not life or death. Why are we so upset about this? Okay. And to that, I would say, yeah, you clearly will not probably need a lot of coaching or support if this happens to you. Like, that's how you feel about it. That's the thoughts that you have. And so this is not something that you would need help or support with. And I might have some people who are in this kind of situation and they need some tough love. They need a coach to kind of kick them in the pants and say, that's enough, self pity. And it's time to get back on the horse and it's time to stop. And some people just need a little bit of encouragement and they just need some positivity and some positive thoughts. And they can just like latch onto those thoughts and they can run with them and they start to reframe it and they turn things around. But in this case, and this is not the only case I've seen this, I've even had this happen to myself a number of times. It became clear that despite everything that we were trying on and like all the support that she has and all of that, it became clear that what she probably needs right now is to forget all that and just be discouraged. And I had a coach say this to me one time early on when I was building my business and when I was first starting to focus on dancers. I'd been a general life coach for a couple of years and I was pivoting to dancing. And it's still hard. It's hard to be an entrepreneur. It's hard to build a business. It's hard to do all the things you need to do to get clients. Like if you're an entrepreneur, like if you're a teacher and you're trying to find clients, you're trying to find students, like you get it. Like it's hard. And early on, I was so discouraged and my friends would try to coach me and they would try to tell me positive things and they would try to show me how everything was going so well. And I was having none of it. Okay. Like my brain could not accept any of it. It was very stubborn. And everything that was being offered to me, my brain was just batting it away, just shutting it down. Nope, that won't work because of this. Nope, that won't work because of that. And nope, I'm special. I'm different. I'm a unique case. I'm a unicorn and that doesn't work for me. And I was so bitter. And finally, my business coach at the time looked at me and she said, Amber, I'll tell you what you need. You just need to be discouraged. And that was not what I wanted in the moment to hear because I wanted solutions, or so I thought. But every time solutions were offered to me, I just batted them away. And she said, no, you need to spend some time being discouraged. You're not ready for solutions. And I was like, what? And I was like furious. But as I was talking to this client, I was like, oh, yep, this is one of those times. We just need to be discouraged. We're resisting we're resisting the circumstance. And we're also resisting the discouragement. We're resisting discouragement. We're resisting sadness. We're resisting frustration and grief. We're resisting the jealousy that we feel about the people that can dance right now. And we're trying to tell ourselves that we should just like be positive about it. And we're telling ourselves we're not coping very well with this. And the reality is that when you dance as much as this client does, and many of you do, and it's your primary interest, and it's how you spend most of your time and attention. And like I said before, like if you're a physical, active person and you're sidelined, it's torturous. Okay. Like it's intolerable to your body. And when it's also your social outlet and it's something that you do with your husband as well, which is her case. No one talks about just how devastating that is. And some people might say, well, it's just dancing. Like focus on something else, focus on a different hobby. And you're just like, you don't get it. Okay. It cannot sound more absurd when somebody says that to you, when kind of like all you really kind of want to do is dance. And when you're at a certain age, especially where you have some beliefs, which I see in clients who are especially like in their 70s and older, there's beliefs there that like your time is limited, that I don't know how long I'm going to be able to dance. And we have these kind of beliefs that at any time I could be injured or at any time something can happen that's going to sideline me for good. And so your brain can run wild with that. And you might think this is the end of your dancing and it might not ever be the same. And everything that you ever cared about in recent history might be coming to a crashing end, including all your social interests. So even though it's a story that our brain is making up, and on some level, we know it's not true, it is very true in that moment. And sometimes our brain just really needs the space to embrace that and just to embrace the discouragement and tell that story and validate it in order to process it. Okay. So the way that I kind of talked about with this particular client was I talked about how, like, if you, for the life cycle of this injury, it's probably going to take a good 12 weeks. And that's kind of what her PT said. She said it would probably be about 3 months. So it would probably take a good 12 weeks to get back to the dance floor. And if those 12 weeks were a movie, and this is how I'm kind of teaching her or describing a way to allow this pain, allow this discouragement without it kind of totally taking you over, is if those 12 weeks were a movie, and I can tell you how this movie ends. Okay. In 12 weeks, I've seen the end. And that new dress that you just bought with all the stones on it, that you were like imagining yourself dancing that waltz at this competition that's coming up, like you are going to do that. Like I've seen the end of the movie. I've seen this. Okay. Don't worry. At the end, you are dancing. You do have the dress, like the whole thing. It's everything you ever imagined. But we're not in that part of the movie. Okay. We're in the beginning of the movie. And in this part of the movie, we're in that part that like the bad thing happened, right? So we're in the beginning, we're in the first few weeks where the sad part is happening, or the breakup happens, or somebody cheated on somebody, or somebody died, or like we're in the part of the movie where something tragic happened and we don't know how this is going to end. And we're sad. It's the discouraging part. It's the part where we have doubts and our brain is going a little bit crazy. And we're hurt physically and we're hurt emotionally. And so in this part of the movie, we might choose to avoid the studio and avoid the friends that we have there because it's very triggering and it's bringing up all of our pain. And we're very jealous that they get to dance and we don't. And it's painful to be in that environment when we can't do what we want to do. And they might invite us to lunch, but we're just too fragile to see them. It would just be too hard. And if we're in the movie and we're that character, we don't know how this is going to end. And so we are lost and we are engrossed in the pain. Okay. But as the person watching the movie, we have a sense that things will probably eventually work out. And we're going to decide that this movie has a happy ending and we're probably going to have a feel good ending. But when we're the person watching the movie, we're still going to let ourselves have a hard time during this part of the movie. That's why we go. When we go to the movie, it's telling this whole story and it takes us on this whole journey and we're like sad. And then we're like, oh my gosh. And then there's like surprises and then it ends in a certain way. And then we get to leave. It took us on this like emotional adventure. And we know none of it's real and we know it's all a story, but we still allow ourselves to feel and experience as we go through that movie. So with you, like when you're in this kind of a situation, you're in the movie, but you're also watching the movie. So you're going to at times let yourself be in the pain of it, be in the discouragement, be the character in the movie, but you're always going to maintain ownership that you're the person outside the movie also watching the movie. Okay. So we're not going to attach to the experience that we're having. Like our brain is going to tell us this could be doomsday, but we're not going to like totally run away with that and believe that's the truth. We just know we're in this part of the movie and we have to hold a little bit of space for this part of the movie. We can't actually fast forward through this part of the movie. We have to just let ourselves experience it. So when it's just time to be discouraged, we allow it. We cry. We let ourselves be jealous. We let ourselves be angry a little bit. We hold space for it. I still want to remind you that when you're in any emotional experience and you're having a lot of a negative emotion, you're still going to stop short of taking it out on other people or mistreating others. Okay. We're still responsible for our emotions and how we treat people. And we're still going to prevent further damage to our relationships and whatnot. But we can, turn down invitations if we don't feel ready to go to them and we don't feel like we're strong enough to handle that. We can choose to isolate ourselves right now and cry and be angry and whatever. We can ruminate and even tell the story, which I call story fondling. We can story fondle and just like tell it again and again and let our minds run away and catastrophize and like let it tell us all the things that are going to go wrong and how this is the beginning of the end. And we allow ourselves to do that as the person in the movie, but also maintain the ownership as the person just watching it go down. And no, this isn't permanent. I don't really mean this. This movie is going to progress, and in the end, everything's going to be okay. but I am going to allow this part of the movie. So even in this part of the movie, we can actually even let go of the responsibility of tending to other people's emotions. And what I mean is, like, when we're going through a hard time, the people around us, which are also people who are not comfortable with their emotions, likely, they are well-intentioned and they want to make us feel better. And really, they do want to make us feel better because they do want us out of pain. But then when we're out of pain, they get to be out of pain. Okay. So what happens sometimes is when we're having a hard time and people ask us about it and we say, oh, I'm having a hard time, like this is not going well or whatever, then we see their response, we see their discomfort with it. And now suddenly we feel responsible for their reaction and we feel responsible for how they feel. And so sometimes they will offer us platitudes and they'll offer us nice things and they'll try to do things to try to include us and whatnot. And it's in an effort to make us feel better, but it's also in an effort to make them feel better. And during this part of the movie, you don't have to be responsible for other people's emotions. So we don't have to be responsible for making them feel better either. You don't have to accept their invitations, okay? And when they're it's all well and good and they mean well and they're trying to say nice things, but also, like, if it's not resonating with you, that's okay too. And we don't have to like go along with it and accept it, okay? So don't also feel like you have to be responsible for other people. Like, it's kind of like if you have a broken leg. This is what I said to my client. It's kind of like if you had a broken leg and somebody was saying, well, but will you just go on a walk with them because they would be so happy to see you. I'm like, no, I have a broken leg. I can't. I got to tend to my own wounds right now. So when we're in this part of the movie, we got to kind of prioritize our own wounds. Okay. Now, when we are in discouragement and we're tending to our own wounds first, if you feel you need to be alone, then be alone. And if you think you need to be with people, be with people. And if you feel like you need to laugh, then find a way to laugh. If you seek out the people that make you laugh, or watch a show that you enjoy, find a show you can binge watch. And when things are hard, be soft. Ask yourself, what do I need to take care of myself right now? And give it to yourself, especially if you're physically injured. Ask yourself, what do you need? And try to give that to yourself. Now, I do think that sometimes we resist the idea of this, like allowing discouragement and just being discouraged, because we're not very skilled and experienced at allowing our emotions. And we actually don't think we create our emotions in any way and we can't control them. They can take over. They show up when they show up and they can take over and swallow me whole. And so we resist the idea that we should allow this negative emotion because it's going to swallow us up and we're never going to come out of it. So I better not allow it. And so we're afraid to sort of surrender to it. And again, that's because I don't think we understand we are the creator of it. We are the creator of our emotions with the stories that we tell. And in the end, we are in control of it. Okay. We do create the vast majority of this with what we think and how we're seeing the situation. With one caveat, there is a little bit of trauma in here where if I've injured myself before, or if I've had kind of this negative experience before, and it was a very difficult recovery and I didn't handle it well emotionally, then I have that sort of imprinted in me that when I'm injured, it's a really bad thing. So there's going to be a little bit of a trauma response in here and a crap ton of stuff that we're thinking that are going to create ourselves a lot of pain. And that part you are in control of. Okay. So the stories that you're telling about how this is the beginning of the end and I might be running out of time and this is going to set me back and I'm never going to be the same. And oh no, I just bought this dress and now I'm going to have to sell it. And all of that story is why we're in pain. It's why we feel hopeless. It's why we feel discouraged. It's the stories that you're rehearsing and telling. And that is why you feel what you feel. But if you hold ownership still of the fact that you're creating those stories, then you understand I'm the creator of all of it. And I'm going to allow myself to tell this story for a minute. I'm going to allow myself some space and some room to be discouraged and to be lost in self-pity for a minute, knowing that I can always pull myself out of it with the story that I choose. But I'm going to allow this story, not because it's like not in the name of getting lost in self-pity. It's in the name of processing it. It's in the name of emptying the suitcase, which I'm going to tell you about in a minute. Because we know at any time we can tell a different story. It's just sometimes when we're trying to tell a different story, we're trying to be positive, we're trying to think new thoughts, and it's just not working. It's because we're resisting what is, and we're not allowing space to fully process what it is we're feeling. Okay. Your brain hasn't had the chance to tell the whole story, which I call emptying the suitcase. And again, I'm going to come back to that in a second. But if we are forcing ourselves to do thought work, and we're trying to force ourselves to be positive and hopeful, and it's just not working, it's time to allow discouragement. It's time to allow and indulge the story, even if it's just a story. If people are trying to coach you and they're trying to offer you solutions and you can't hear them and you're just batting away the solutions, it might be time to allow the story and allow some discouragement. Now, emptying the suitcase. I have a teenage client that I meet with in person, and I do general coaching with her. She does do dance along with swim and like a number of other things. But at the start of every session, I meet with her in person because she's in my town. And at the start of every session, I say, go ahead and empty your suitcase. And what this means is I want her to just unload. I let her, and I say, don't censor yourself. Don't say, like, I shouldn't think that that's rude, or I don't really mean that. And I'm like, and don't hold back because you think I'm going to judge you for what you're going to say. I'm not. And don't try to coach yourself and try to say something more polite. I'm like, empty it all. And so she'll start to tell me about her week, like what's going on with dance, what's going on with swim, what's going on with your friends, what's going on with your family, what's going on at home, what's going on in your assignments, what's going on with school. And I go, what else? What else? What else? And I encourage her to kind of be dramatic and to like let her tell the whole story. And I don't interrupt her, and I don't try to tell her to think about it differently. And if anything, I validate this emptying of the suitcase. And I say, yeah, she should not have said that. Friends don't talk that way to you. And yeah, that is not okay. And I validate her stories. And the reason is because I have found that sometimes our brains just aren't open to coaching unless we've been able to tell the whole story. How can you coach me and help me get to a new place if you haven't even heard the whole story? And some people can't tolerate this. Some people can't tolerate letting people tell the story. They just need to like stop them in their tracks. But for some situations with some clients at some times, the best medicine is emptying the suitcase and telling the story and allowing the pain, allowing the discouragement. And then when you have told the story so many times and you've wallowed in your sadness in the name of processing, not in the name of self-pity, but you've allowed it enough such that you are entirely so sick of yourself and you're just ready to be done with that. Then you're going to be a little bit more ready to try on the things that I offered my client in the first session and in episode 62. And I will also say that if the movie spans 12 weeks of healing, then expect the first 2 to 4 weeks when that injury is fresh and your brain goes crazy, that is going to be the hardest part of the movie. Like I said, we can't fast forward this. We're just going to go through this part of the movie. And at about 4 weeks is when medical people and physical therapists generally start to say, okay, this is when you can start to do a little bit more activity. You can do a little bit of light cardio, a little bit of light walking, take it slow. This is when they start to reintroduce activity. And I think our bodies really like this. First of all, our bodies like to move and they do better when they move. And I do feel like at 4 weeks, just about 4 to 6 is when we start to have a little bit of a turnaround physically. And when this turnaround starts to happen, we start to have a little bit of uptick. Our brain goes, oh, wait a minute. I think I might be feeling a little bit better. I think I might be in a little less pain. I think I might be making a little more progress. And our brain it's starting to see some evidence that this is going to turn around. And so it starts to be hopeful. And your brain's going to start to say things like, maybe I am going to be okay. And maybe I will get through this. And maybe I can fully recover. And that maybe that little bit of hope and that little bit of actual physical evidence that we're getting better is going to help start turning this around. This is where the movie starts to shift and new people come into the scenes and and things start to work out. And it gives you permission. All that's happened, you might physically actually get better during this time. So there is actual literal physical evidence that things are turning around. But all that does is give your brain a little bit of permission to believe that that's true. It makes it easier to believe that. So it helps influence you to have better thoughts. Like, maybe I am going to be okay. So don't forget, we're still in control of that. It's just the physical evidence is allowing it. It's making it a little bit easier for us, rather, to think good thoughts about where this is going. And then a little bit after that, when we're getting to 10 weeks, 11 weeks, 12 weeks, you're going to wonder why you ever doubted. You're going to start to see the end of the movie. You're going to start to be able to visualize that. And you're going to look back at yourself and go, I don't know why I was freaking out. And I don't know why I was so upset. And I don't know why I was so down in the dumps. And I don't know why I was so discouraged. But for me, I think this is a totally normal life cycle of like an injury and like a discouragement period. So you're right on track. Okay. So if in the beginning you need to just be a little bit discouraged, that's okay. All right. Okay. I love you guys. Don't forget to get on that waiting list to find out what's coming next. You're going to love it. Okay. Catch you next time.